Congrats on getting this up and running, by the way, especially with everything going on. I mean,
honestly, thank you so much, but it's these guys, the folks at St. Louis Assembly and Derek that made it happen. I never in my life was I like, oh yeah, the restaurant biz. Like I used to be a busboy when I was a kid. So I know about the restaurant biz, and I was like, you know, even though we had movies in our movies, and people would be like, you should do that in real life. I'm like, do you know what it takes to run a restaurant? Like, it's not a joke, man. There's food involved, preparation, you got to order, you don't know how much food to order and stuff. Getting involved with Derek, like he's got the expertise in the restaurant, making it a pop-up is ingenious. Like we didn't even think about taking it place to place. He franchised, if you will, Saved by the Max, because it started here in Chicago and then he took it to Los Angeles and stuff. So when we did the movies pop-up in West Hollywood, like we weren't thinking, this is something that could keep going. We thought it would happen
like, oh, this will be a fun day.
We thought like 1 month and it's done. It wound up going like 2 months. And then a restaurant in New Jersey called Gianni's reached out and they were like, can we do that? And suddenly, without even like, we backed into a franchisable like idea where it's like, oh, you could literally do this any place because you're coming and going. Like, as long as you have a restaurant that's willing to host. So this time around, the good folks at St. Louis Assembly were like, yeah, we'll host. So we get to reskin for the week and kind of let people come into our fake fast food world and stuff. With real food. It is really sick.
This is cool. I've never been here before.
It's great. They got a patio out back that's like to die for, and we can't even use that sadly. But the food is legit great, man. Like Chef Royce developed our menu back in West Hollywood. And it's carried, man. That's the one compliment that like I take away from the 2 previous times we've done it. Is people like, food's actually good. So thank the Lord, man, because that drives, you know, at the end of the day, we only have so many Kevin Smith fans. So you hope that there are people that are just like, oh, what's this? I'll try it and pop in. That's what happened in West Hollywood a lot. A lot of people were walking by and they'd be like, what is this? And so if we had space for them, Derek would accommodate, but they weren't there because they're like, I love Clerks too. They were there because they're like, I want a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah, they're like, it's the cock smoker? All right, I'll eat it. You know.
But to imagine them coming in not knowing what it is and then seeing like the names and things, be like, what the hell?
Derek said that one day they had like 4 old ladies come in and they had no idea what anything was, but he's so like, funny. It was worth it just to hear him order the cock smoker.
You have to say it. Just to be like, I'll take that moment where you look up and you're like, does it say? Yeah, it says cock smoker.
The freedom to say it in the restaurant.
When are you guys going to put one in that's got the meat grinder shaped playground for the kids? Did you know about that?
That's got to be 2021 when everything maybe...
When people can go back outside.
Or 2022.
That takes some real development.
The idea
and that might not be so travel like appropriate. That's going to be tough.
That has to be a city by city. Yeah, but that was the idea. The meat grinder from Dogma was I absolutely loved. But in Clerks 2, the slide outside of movies was set up to look like a ball.
Which
that one's easier to pull off.
That's a dual move.
I just love that idea of like that being on the back of the trailer, and then you and Jason just like driving down the road with that thing banging and
little kids driving down the highway. What the hell?
They used to have a movie career. Now look at this. What happened?
He travels this all. You bring all this stuff yourself. I love that.
Yes, but if only I could be that self-sufficient. Mercifully, so many talented people like go into building this. I show up last night. I get to see it done. So I'm not even like, hey man, let me hang this for you. It's so awesome then because I get to experience it kind of like the fans when they come in, as much as I get to see it for the first time too. And I also don't know what to expect. I have a general idea of like, I'm sure it'll be movie themed. But like this time around with the details, the pictures from the movies and stuff, that's delightful even for me. So I know if it works for me, it's going to work for like people that like these movies.
Do you get nostalgic when you're going around seeing? Like,
absolutely. But to be fair, I live in a state of nostalgia. You know, the greatest thing that ever happened to me, other than having, you know, getting married and having a kid, happened to me when I was like 23 years old. So I've had a lot of time to think about it. And it's such an endearing memory that like I practically live in it. And not a day has gone by since 1994 where I haven't said the word Clerks. In reference not to the real world, but in reference to that movie. So I get nostalgic looking around, but to be fair, I'm kind of soaked in nostalgia at all times. You know, we just made that Jay and Silent Bob reboot last year, which was like a total nostalgia fest. It was an old man movie, you know, just all looking back and stuff. And right now in 2020, nobody wants to look at the present. looking back, it's
Yeah.
a safe place to be.
Yeah, that oddly works. Yeah.
And the 25-year anniversary of Mallrats just.
This year, yeah, just passed.
Me and my wife just watched it. It was like a week ago or something like that. I was like, oh, let's turn it on and check it out.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, 25 years ago, that movie came out and died so hard at the box office.
Which is insane.
It's crazy.
I didn't know that until I was researching for this. I was like, because I grew up with that movie, I just assumed like, oh yeah, me and my friends loved it. So I assumed everybody loved it.
That is something I also came to learn over time, that like I would meet so many people who are like, oh, I'd say Dogma flopped, and they're like, no, it couldn't have flopped. I have that on home video, and you're like,
oh yeah,
that has nothing to do with whether, exactly.
Yeah.
But it has this bizarre staying power, and has had so for a quarter of a century. And when that movie came out, like it was the end of my career. Like everyone was just like, he's finished, and yet now it just buoyed my career.
It's honestly like nice to hear that. I feel like because sometimes those moments they feel so powerful, and like when someone's telling you like this is the end of your career, I feel like you just be like, I don't know. It's so nice to be like, no, just relax. Everything's gonna work out.
I wish I'd felt that way. I was panicked. I was just like, it is. Like, I believed him and
This is
stuff.
the first I'm hearing of it.
Yeah, well, the movie, like, I'd only made one movie prior to that, which was Clerks, and made it on credit. This movie cost $5 million. It only made $2 million at the box office, so I'm like, do I owe somebody $3 million? Like, I don't have that kind of money.
Especially after the first movie, like I had to pay. Like if Clerks didn't make money, like you were out of money. You were on the hook. Yeah.
So yeah,
got to pay those credit cards back.
It was a confusing time, but it was Chasing Amy, the movie that came afterwards, was a desperation like Hail Mary because we were so out of the business because of Mallrats, and yet years later. Like Mallrats is the one that gets referenced in Captain Marvel. Mallrats is the one, it's got Stan, so it wound up having this longer life than anyone, especially me, would have thought. Like even if Mallrats had done well when it come out, made like $100 million, I never would have predicted that like 25 years later people would still be talking
Quoting
about
it and stuff.
That is nuts.
It's so bright, man. When I was rewatching that, I hadn't watched it since I was a kid, and like now, cause me and him both, we like are in the comedy world, we write and all that stuff. So like as a writer, watching structurally how that movie all plays out and comes together, and how all the characters' little pieces all culminate at the end, it's like I was watching that like it was a master class.
You know what? Honestly, like my entire career, people have shouted out things about Mallrats that they like. Nobody has ever said that about the script.
That's the
Dude, it is though. Like if you really look at it like structurally, it is such a well put together. Like the formula of that script is freaking. It hits everything.
I am so delighted to hear you say that because I copied the exact same formula for the sequel for Twilight of the Mallrats, which we shoot next year.
Yeah.
Because I had a different movie planned, and it was not remotely like Mallrats. It was more like Die Hard in a mall with Brody as John McClane, which isn't very Mallrats at all. So the new one that I wrote called Twilight of the Mallrats is like I went back to Mallrats to be like, all right, just do it scene for scene, but updated in this world.
Yeah.
And so structurally, I just for the last few months have been dealing with the movie. And you know, this is a movie that like when it came out and flopped, I was like, ugh, and I disowned it and stuff. Now with time and space and having to look at the structure of the movie, it does actually kind of work.
Yeah,
like
seriously.
it holds up. I always thought it was like a goof to me, and now I look at it and I'm like, that's sound. No wonder like people find it comforting. I don't think it's a great movie, but it's such a comforting, warm blanket of a movie to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot like the big premise of that movie. I feel like totally gets lost. That opening scene. The whole reason this is happening, the whole reason Brody's getting broken up with is because he like basically caused this lady's death, which is so funny, and it gets lost. Like I don't think people really like walk away from the movie thinking about that, but it's such a hilarious little like plot point.
It's TS more than Brody.
TS that's right.
But it's true. Like it's something that'll hang over that character forever. He has a happy ending at the end. He gets together with Brandy, but somewhere in the audience is Julie Dwyer's family. Like you piece of shit, you don't deserve this.
Oh my god, dude.
So we do like comedy food reviews. That's kind of like what this section of what we do is for being here today. And seeing you on YouTube too, like being a YouTuber because you do so many things, where do you kind of see that like YouTube niche work so well for people who are like creators? Like why does it work for you? Why do you think it's such a great platform for people to like launch anything really?
I feel such an affinity and affection for YouTube because Clerks happened in like 1994. If I didn't do it then, if I waited 10 minutes, I would have been a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been thinking about like, how do I distribute this movie? Somebody has to buy it and all that traditional malarkey that I grew up with. And mind you, I was fighting against a system, well not fighting, but I was indie. So I knew there was another way. But still, even with that other way, the weird kind of nature of the independent film movement, particularly in the 90s, and even now today, is generally people like, we're indie, and we were owned by a studio. You know, like Miramax was owned by Disney. Disney essentially everything I made after Mallrats they financed. So it was. I don't think like I got insanely lucky with Clerks and stuff when we did it, but if years later I had been like, if it had been like 2 years later, I was like, oh, I want to make a movie. I would have felt the safety of like, if nothing else, I know there'll be an audience. I know there's distribution. I mean, that's the thing that this generation of media makers can't appreciate because they weren't there for a time where there was no platform to put your art up on. You needed somebody to buy it and then put it in theaters, or you needed to rent a movie theater or whatever. And God forbid you wanted to get on TV. That was even more exclusive and stuff. So having a platform where they're like, do what you want. You bring yourself to it. I mean, it's right there in the name. Is so in the spirit of everything that I stood for. And I would have been a YouTube kid. Like, and now, in the years, like, you know, since YouTube has gotten huge, and these kids are like multi-millionaires. You know, like certainly figured out their niche in life and exploited the hell out of it and are making like commanding livings and stuff. And they've turned what was a series of fun videos into literally their livelihood. So I get to meet a lot of these cats, and invariably half of them are just like, oh man, like I saw your flick, I saw Clerks when I was a kid, and it made me go like, well, if he could do that, then I could do this.
It's like motivating.
And so you're like, so somewhere in the DNA of your being a millionaire is me? Can I have money?
Where's my tax?
Here, please. And they don't really pay up. But it's just so nice to see the trickle down. Like that's what the indie film movement was always meant to be, is like, I was inspired by Richard Linklater. And then hopefully my stuff inspired other people. And on YouTube, it's the same thing. People put up a video, there are a bunch of people out there watching who go like, you know what, I want to try something like that. And they create their own thing and branch out and do this. So it's been amazing to watch and amazing to be a part of. That's where we put up Fat Man Beyond every week and stuff. That's where me and Jay have done What's in the Box. And it's a haven, you know, creative haven where you get to pretty much do whatever you want. Very few restrictions. And, you know, you don't get that in the paid world of media. You know what I'm saying? Like, very rarely, unless you're J.J. Abrams, Chris Nolan, very rarely do you have no restrictions and you just get to create what you want. So, you know, it's so funny. I meet a lot of YouTubers who aspire to like the big media, like movies and TV. I'm like, why? You can make so much money right here being the king or queen of your own dominion. You don't have to like respond to anybody else. Nobody should ever want a boss in this world.
Oh my God, right?
Except one if you have to, especially in the creative world. Except one if you have to, but like, the point of this is to try to get to a place where you're in charge, making all the calls and whatnot. It's your unfettered creative influence that you could put out there. And that's what you get to do, as you guys well know, on YouTube.
Hell yeah. Well, ready to wrap it up? We got one present for you. We loved Not Ones, and so we actually have our own hot sauce. So if you guys ever do another Not Ones, there's number 6 with cheese. And not to brag, but we were actually featured on the Hot Ones page. So just
of course not an episode, of course not. But
famous,
they flashed us on there.
They flashed us on there.
Muse will down this for sure.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Congrats on
Thanks,
that.
we appreciate it, man. Thanks
This is
for
one
talking.
of those things where I'm like, wait a second, why don't I have a hot?
Right?
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
Congrats
I'm looking
on this,
forward
too.
to Moose Jaw.
Oh my God, it's gonna be
Very,
exciting,
very
man.
excited.
We got a little bit closer last week, so it'll be fun.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time, brother.
Pleasure, kids.